Do you struggle with elbow pain whenever you perform the bench press or train your arms in general? Because it feels like you've been beating your elbows more than just your meat all these years. Well, then, do I have some news for you? Because I'm a 600-pound bencher and I'm going to floss this out for you. There are 4 reasons your elbows feel a little extra beat up whenever you're performing the bench press or training your arms in general. And the first reason is dehydration. You are dehydrated, you don't drink enough water. You cannot replace water with iced coffee. You cannot replace hydration with energy drinks. Caffeine is a diuretic, and oftentimes people consume way too much of it, and their body expels water at an expedited rate. You need to drink more water in order to keep your joints healthily lubricated up. Think about it. Do you prefer girls in their mid-20s or girls in their mid-40s? There's a very specific hydration difference between the two of them, and you prefer the one that's a little better lubed. The second reason is just general inflammation. See, your elbow is a connection point for a lot of muscles in your arms. You've got the triceps, the forearms, all connecting in your elbow area. And general inflammation means you've been overusing and not allowing your body to recover enough to have a positive impact on your ability to perform the bench press or do general accessories. Now that we have all the nerd answers out of the way, all those answers those scientists or doctors would tell you is up with your elbow. I'm not a doctor, but I will check your prostate if you ask nice enough. We've got 2 more reasons why your elbows are probably in pain. The first reason is kind of similar to the inflammation in your tendons, but it's a knot somewhere down the river. See, pain a lot of times is not due to something at the source of the pain. So something in your elbow can be some knot that's down the river somewhere, whether it be down your forearms or down your triceps, maybe even your biceps, pulling and wrapping around. There's a lot of muscles going on and connecting in your elbow. That entire joint kind of area has a lot of musculature going on. And there's a couple of ways that I'm going to teach you today how to kind of release those and also suffer a little bit while doing so, because it's prehab, rehab, and you haven't been doing it, and that's why your elbow hurts, dumbass. Now, someone who's a little less autistic than me would probably tell you to roll your elbows out. Now, I'm no expert on the male anatomy, but this is a little thick for my elbows. I can't quite get a good angle on my elbow, and that just does not do anything for me. So what you want to do to release a lot of the knots that you have going on in your arms, because they're going to be very, very tight, because it's very fine muscles going on there. There's a lot of bundles of nerves going through your hands and forearms, because it's important for you to recognize that back in the Neanderthal days and like evolution, whenever, our hands and our tactile nature, which rooted from the need to touch and feel pain and things, comes a lot from our extremities. So they're going to be extra sensitive to things that are painful. So that being said, bite the pillow, we're going in raw. We're using a steel bar. So a steel bar, a barbell, just have it set up on something that you can roll it. The rolling is going to be what's going to be releasing a lot of things. So to release your forearm, you kind of just roll it back and forth, and you try to find a spot that is extra sensitive, extra tender. You can even come from under and roll it with your other hand, which is currently holding the camera, and feel it like that. Another sensitive spot is going to be the inside of your weenus. I don't know what it's called because I'm not actually a doctor, but it's a very sensitive bundle, and this is probably going to be right around here where it goes and connects at your inner elbow. This is a connection point from your forearms to your biceps, and if you roll that out, you'll get a little bit of a release in your, potentially a release in your elbow. Also, your bicep. You can roll your bicep out like this as well. Any sort of your upper body extremities can be rolled out with a barbell that can roll. and it's going to be very beneficial to you. It's going to help release a lot of the knots and a lot of the tightness in your muscles. And it'll also end up, in the long run, reducing your inflammation. Inflammation is caused by something. It's either you just overusing something, or it's getting overused because the muscles further down the line are being overtaxed because they're tight. They're pulling those tendons tight, and they're not ever able to actually release. So you need to release the knots to release your tendons so they can feel better. So I know a lot of you are like, why do I have this tightness? Why do I have this abuse going on in my elbows? Why is everything getting knotted and stuff? And it's simply because you don't stretch it. You don't do the rollouts, you don't stretch it. And you're like, but I do stretch it. If you're doing a tricep stretch like this, there's no variable going on there. There's no progression going on there. You can't measure the amount of progression that's going on when you're doing that. And this is because you've been ignoring the fact that accessory movements are stretching under a load. So when you do an accessory movement, you are working to build muscle. You are working to gain muscle fibers, hypertrophy, hyperplasia. You want to gain muscle fibers when you're doing that, but you're not going a full range of motion. You're not getting a stretch. If you remember our favorite grapefruit fucker back in the day, he said stretch and contract. Kai Green, for those of you who haven't watched porn in the past decade. Stretch and contract. You want to focus on getting a stretch of your accessory movement, the muscles full stretching at the bottom of a movement, and then a compression or contraction at the top end of that movement. We're going to look at how to properly do that with overhead tricep extensions. And this is a good way to also increase the amount of stretch going on in your triceps, because generally, a lot of the times that your elbows hurt is because your triceps are tight. They can have the bicep or forearm, but generally it's the triceps, but some other cases can pop up. So generally, y'all don't train your triceps well enough. A lot of you go like this, and you can see there's not much range of motion going on. What you want to do is you want to feel the stretch, bend your elbows, and feel the stretch in your triceps. Push your elbows to the sky and feel a little bit of a stretch in your lats, and then contract. Hold it for a second. Control the eccentric, because that's where 55% of the gains happen, is in the eccentric. Get to the bottom and feel the stretch. Feel a good stretch. Kind of wiggle your elbows to find where that good spot is. Once you find it, contract, and then repeat over and over again. So what this does is it allows you to get a deeper and more aggressive stretch, and it is measurable where your stretch is. And it's also going to do two things for you. It's going to grow your muscles without causing injury or risking injury, unless you're overly tight, then you were going to get injured regardless. And secondly, it's going to work on the elasticity of your muscle fibers, because you're constantly stretching them. You're getting them nice and loose, more elastic, and the tendency for knots to form in your muscles is going to get highly reduced. I was going to do standing tricep extensions too, as an example, right? But I see this monstrosity where someone put 2 of these handles to reduce the range of motion, which is the worst possible thing that you can do when you're trying to mitigate tricep pain and elbow pain. So don't do that. And I'm going to set this up properly for you guys to show you how to get a bigger stretch, a bigger range of motion when doing the tricep push down, because it's a little nuanced and it's not straightforward. So I'm going to teach you guys how to get an increased range of motion so that you can get that bigger stretch and get that prehab in your elbows, in your triceps, in order to loosen the gunk up a little bit and get some pain-free bench press going. Tricep push down, staple in, oh, holy shit, I'm small. Tricep push down, staple in every gym bro's arsenal when training the arms, the triceps. But what they generally do is they'll come in and they can feel a good stretch right here, right? And they come, they extend, and they bring it up, and they kind of stay around here. You're not getting a stretch here. You're emphasizing the amount of stress on your elbows, because right here, that's when the stress is on your tendons, and there's not really a stretch going on. It's just stressing them out and increasing the load bearing on your elbows. Not a good idea. So what you want to do is you want the extension, slowly let the eccentric come in. This is generally where most gym bros would stop. You let it come up, feel that stretch in your elbows, and then let your shoulders rise and kind of shrug it. And you're going to get a little bit more of a stretch going on. Once you feel that stretch, hold it for a second or two, and then compress. And then just keep repeating it. And you're on your way to a pain-free bench press. The last thing on our list that we're going to talk about today, which is generally the newbies' reason why their elbows hurt when they're doing the bench press, is it's because your form sucks. When your form sucks on the bench press, things happen that shouldn't happen. And generally, of course, that's the most obvious statement ever. When your form sucks at anything, things happen when they shouldn't. But on the bench press, what happens is your elbows flare early when your touch position is inconsistent. So what I mean is where you touch on your chest determines the amount of stress that goes into your elbows, because if you're able to get a optimal touch position during a bench press, the load will go into your triceps. But the earlier your elbows flare, the earlier the stress gets transferred to your elbows. And that does not feel good at all. So what we're going to be talking about is the touch position on the bench press. So when you're benching, a lot of people will come and touch around the nipples, right? And you can kind of see my elbows are kind of in line with the bar. You don't get a lot of power here, but you get a lot of stress in your elbows. So what you want is you want to bring it down somewhere on your top ab. This is approximately the bottom of the top ab. This is a little higher. And then this is around the zone of acceptable touch positions for the bench press. You get a lot of power, and you can see my elbows aren't flared out. They're tucked under the bar, and all the stress is in my triceps. So all the tension is in the triceps. We're storing elastic potential energy in the triceps. And when you get the press command, you're able to press it right up without any stress on your elbows. But you don't want to go too far forwards, because then the bar gets out in front of your elbow, and when you press, it rolls the bar forward, and it presses it out of your control. And that's when you dump on your chest. So find your touch position somewhere on that top ab. And you can kind of cheat this a little by trying to make your stomach as fat as possible. And that's by diaphragmatic breathing. So you want to expand your stomach as much as possible, and it gets a higher touch position the lower on your top ab you get. And then you don't have as much range of motion. Like, see the difference in range of motion? An inch has a lot of personality. And there's one more movement a lot of people like to perform to try and build their triceps, which causes a lot of stress on the elbows. And there's a better way to go about it, and that is the skull crusher. When I perform the skull crusher, I get in the bench backwards, because otherwise the bench gets in the way, and you want all the range of motion above you. So, set up for a skull crusher. And what a lot of people do is they go directly to the forehead. Now, you can feel when you're doing this that all the tension and all the pressure goes to your elbow. You can store it in your triceps a little bit, but if you're inflamed and you have tightness and you lack elasticity in your triceps, it's going to feel like someone's taking a jackhammer to your elbows. If you're in pain when doing a skull crusher, there's an alternative called the JM press. A lot of people use it with a safety squat bar, but you don't need a safety squat bar in order to perform a JM press. Basically, it's an arcing skull crusher. So you bring it down almost like a close grip bench, and then you rock it back, and you can feel that the bar skips the tension in the tricep, and it just puts everything in the tricep. It skips the tension in the elbow and puts all the tension in the tricep. So you close grip bench, and then you rock it back, and you can control the range of motion, and you're not just going skull crusher, forehead, locked out. You go chest. If this is all you can do, this is all you can do. If you can go to your forehead, that's also good. And if you can extend backwards and get an extended range of motion, you can go all the way to the bench and then go all the way up. Oh, fuck. Shit. Peak athleticism. So that's not all the ways that you can go about increasing the elasticity of your triceps and the muscles used when performing the bench press. But I'm assuming you guys have brains going on in your heads, and you can use what we learned today and apply it to your training to increase the range of motion, feel that increased stretch, and feel that compression. That compression is going to build that mind-body connection. It's going to increase the amount of gains that you get when performing movements. The stretch is going to increase the amount of recovery and increase your recoverability when performing these movements so that you can do them more often, you can get more gains. So training smarter, being a scholar of the muscle, is going to benefit you because you're going to understand things like this and be able to apply it to different movements. If you have a favorite tricep movement, like a tricep kickback, recognize that you want to feel the maximal stretch. You want to feel the maximal stretch, have the maximal contraction. And once you have total control of that, then you can progress it. It's not like a static stretch where you're just sitting there holding it and hoping that there's a stretch going on. You increase the load, you increase the stretch, you increase the gains. It's a compounding interest of benefits. You've got increased elasticity, reduced chance of injury, increased gains, increased frequency that you can perform, that you can increase your musculature, increased recoverability. So there's a lot going on there, and we went over a lot, but I hope you guys understood what I was saying today. Take care of your body, and your body will take care of you. Because if you don't hydrate, if you try to replace all of your liquids with caffeinated beverages, you're going to have a bad time. Your muscles are not going to be elastic because it requires water and hydration to be elastic, which is going to snowball into inflammation, which takes time to recover from. You need to stretch and release a lot of the things causing the inflammation down the line in order to have an increased amount of recoverability so that you can progress further. Otherwise, you'll stay stagnant, you'll stay in the same spot, and you'll stay in pain. And then lastly, increasing the proficiency you have in form. The form is so important. If everyone could go in and have perfect form, they'd be developing the right muscles, right musculature, and their gains would compound and get a lot faster. They'd be able to get stronger a lot easier because they're working the correct muscles and not just trying to work around whatever weaknesses, whatever pains, whatever stability issues that they have with their suboptimal form work. So be healthy, get elastic, and stop sucking when it comes to your form work because it's more important than you think. You're not going to go anywhere without good form. So this has been Patrick McGuire, Full Primal Power, your friendly neighborhood 600-pound bencher, and hopefully y'all are going to stop being stupid and be pain-free because that's why I made this video. It's for you, not for me.